I remember the highway like it was a thread of silver cutting through the night, endless and humming beneath the tires. The fog rolled in thick, curling around the streetlights like pale smoke, swallowing the horizon. Every rest stop I passed seemed abandoned, doors ajar, flickering lights reflecting off slick asphalt, like the world had been paused and forgotten. I kept the radio on, but the static was louder than the songs, whispering in a way I almost understood. Somewhere ahead, a lone tree shivered, its shadow stretching over the road as though it had stepped down from the darkness to watch me pass. I thought I was alone, just the hum of the engine and the smell of damp tar filling the cab. But then the headlights caught something standing just beyond the exit sign, motionless, pale, and impossibly still. I blinked. Nothing. I shrugged. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks, but deep down I knew better. That's when I saw it. The highway was empty. Late night, fog curling along the asphalt. My headlights cut through it in shallow sweeps. I glanced at my map again. And then an exit. A number that wasn't there before. The sign leaned in the fog, pale and shivering. I slowed, gripping the wheel a little tighter. The road beneath me felt softer, muffled, like I was moving underwater. I took the exit. The pavement ended almost too quickly. A rest stop appeared, squat and lonely, its lights flickering like weak candles. There was no one. Not a car, not a figure. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. The vending machine hummed. A low, droning hum that vibrated through my chest. I stepped closer. Inside, the drinks were frozen. Ice clinging to the plastic bottles, forming strange patterns. Condensation hung like tears on the glass. I pressed a button, waited. Nothing. The machine hummed again, almost impatiently, then footsteps. Soft, deliberate, approaching. I froze. I scanned the lot. Empty. No one there. The fog thickened. Each breath tasted colder, thinner. I could hear the hum in my ears now, even when I turned away from the machine. I tried the door to the rest stop. Locked. Rusting hinges groaning with a small protest. Shadows moved along the walls. Not quite human. Not quite still. A soda fell in the vending machine. I hadn't pressed the button. It rolled to the front, stopped, and waited. I looked around. Still nothing. But the fog seemed to press closer, wrapping around my car like fingers. I climbed back in. The engine turned over, loud and alien in the quiet. As I pulled onto the exit ramp, I glanced back. The lights of the rest stop were dimmer now. The building seemed older, smaller. As if it had existed before memory, waiting for someone like me. The highway stretched again. Empty. Silent. And then, the exit sign, different. Faded letters. Rust creeping along the edges. I shouldn't have been able to see it that way. Not with the map. Not with the night, but it was there. Pale, waiting. I drove on. The hum of the vending machine stayed with me. Soft. Insistent. Even when the fog disappeared, the emptiness remained. And I wondered quietly if it had ever been an exit at all. The road whispered back. I didn't answer. The fog had been settling long before I noticed it. A low, pale blanket creeping across the asphalt. Headlights barely pierced it, smearing everything into shapes. I slowed the car. Everything outside blurred into white. The trees, the guardrails. Nothing had edges. Shapes moved within the fog. Tall, thin, almost human. But when I raised the lights, they vanished. Gone. Like smoke swallowed them whole. The radio crackled. Not music, not static alone. Voices murmured between the hiss. My name. Soft, drawn out, almost gentle. I told myself it was my imagination. I told myself the fog was thick enough to make anything seem alive. But I kept glancing at the mirrors. Alone. Nothing, except shadows shifting. The road narrowed. White lines blurred into one continuous smear. Each turn seemed longer than the last, as if the fog had folded the world in on itself. I slowed even more. The shapes returned. A cluster of them, standing too still, too thin. The closest one raised an arm, slow, deliberate. Or maybe it wasn't an arm. It was just shadow, folding into shadow. I blinked. Nothing. The radio murmured again. Closer this time. Urgent. Almost like it was breathing with me. The fog pressed against the car. Soft, wet. It smelled faintly of cold earth, of rain that had never reached the sky. Every time I moved forward, it thickened. Every time I paused, it clung tighter. I noticed the headlights flickering, small, momentary, like a heartbeat in the dark. And in that flicker, I thought I saw them standing on the shoulder, silent, waiting, watching. I slowed to a crawl. Every foot of asphalt seemed infinite. The shapes drifted beside me, barely there, almost whispers themselves. I tried to look away, tried to focus on the dashboard lights, but the fog followed, brushing against the tires, curling around the mirrors. The voices on the radio became clearer, whispering, insistent, not words I could understand, except my name, over and over. I noticed movement inside the fog again, a thin figure pacing. It tilted its head, paused, then vanished before I could blink. The car felt heavy, breath inside the cabin uneven. I checked the rearview mirror. Nothing but fog, and then a shadow flitted past, pale, fleeting. I knew it hadn't been reflection. The fog didn't lift. It followed. I could feel it crawling along the side windows, touching me. Soft, insistent, patient. The shapes multiplied. Not many, not crowded. Just enough to keep me guessing. Almost human. Almost waiting. They never stepped onto the road. They didn't need to. I wanted to stop. Wanted to turn around. But the road behind was swallowed, too. Every tree, every fence post, blurred into the same pale nothing. The radio whispered again. Closer. Somewhere between static and breath. I could almost imagine a face in it. A mouth opening behind the hum, saying my name as if it had always known it. The fog pressed harder against the tires. I felt it coil around the car. An uninvited hand, soft as silk, cold as wet stone. Shapes shifted in the periphery. Gone when I looked directly. I caught a reflection in the side mirror. A pale, thin face pressed to the glass. Eyes like hollow lanterns. I swerved, heart in my throat. And it was gone. The road twisted again. And suddenly, silence. No radio, no whispering. Just the faint scrape of tires on wet asphalt. I dared to breathe. For a moment, I thought I was alone. The fog thinned, just a little. Shapes had vanished. But the feeling, the knowing, lingered. It hadn't left. I drove slower. Every shadow in the fog seemed alive. Every turn might reveal them again. Waiting, watching, patient. The headlights cut through one last stretch. I swear, in that pale, broken light, I saw them standing on the shoulder. Tall, thin, still. Faces like smoke, fingers like whispers. And then, they were gone. The fog followed me all the way to the next exit. I didn't look back. Couldn't. But sometimes when the night is thick and the world is quiet, I can still hear the faint hum of static. And my name whispered through the fog as if it had never left my side. The highway was quiet, far quieter than it should have been for a Friday night. Fog lay low, clinging to the asphalt like smoke. I pulled into the rest stop, the kind of place that smells of old coffee and mildew. The neon sign buzzed weakly. Its light was pale, flickering in the mist. I told myself I just needed a quick break, a stretch. The restroom sat at the edge of the lot, walls streaked with grime. I pushed the door open. It groaned as if it hadn't moved in years. Inside, the air was damp, cold. The smell of rust and cleaners burned my nose. I went to the sinks, but then I noticed it. The door to the stall. It was shaking. A slow, insistent tremble, back and forth. I froze. "Hello?" I whispered. No reply. Only the faint hum of the flickering light above. Shadows stretched across the cracked tiles, long and thin. Every time the bulb flickered, the shapes shifted, crawling across the floor. I blinked, and the stall door stopped. I stepped closer. The mirror above the sink reflected my own face, pale and drawn. But for a moment I thought I saw someone else, behind me, leaning closer. A rustle. Soft, deliberate, like someone dragging their hand along the tile. I turned. Nothing. The light stuttered. Each flicker seemed to stretch the room, elongating the shadows until the corners were full of impossible shapes. Shapes that could reach if they wanted to. I told myself it was just the wind. The rest stop was old, boarded up in places. Yet I could hear it again, the faint scraping, like fingernails tracing cracks in the floor. My heart pounded so loud I could almost hear it in the mirrors. And then the silence came. Complete, heavy, as if the room was holding its breath. I called out again, a little louder this time. "Hello?" Nothing. Not a whisper, not a footstep, nothing. The faucet dripped. A single drop fell, echoing against the tiles like a warning. I couldn't look at the mirror anymore, not straight on. I glanced at the stall one last time. The door had stopped moving, perfectly still. I could swear I saw a shadow pressed against it, dark and waiting. The air grew colder, settling into my bones. I felt eyes on the back of my neck. My skin prickled, and I wanted to run, but my feet felt heavy. Another flicker, and the reflection changed again. Not me, not quite human, not quite shadow. It was leaning closer, tilting its head, as if it was curious. I whispered a name I didn't know. It didn't answer. Just tilted its head further, listening, waiting. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a broken tile. The sound echoed through the empty restroom. It was too loud. Too final. I didn't turn back even as the door rattled again. I bolted out, the hum of the neon sign almost deafening after the silence. The fog wrapped around me as I ran to my car, my breath leaving clouds in the cold night. I locked the doors, windows fogged with my own fear. Even from inside, I could feel it watching. The rustling, soft, deliberate, always there. I didn't look back. The lot stretched empty behind me, the neon buzzing a pale warning. And yet, even as I drove away, I could see it in the corner of my eyes. Elongated figures flickering behind cracked mirrors, waiting for the next quiet soul. I tell myself it was nothing. A trick of the light, old pipes, but sometimes late at night I can still hear the scraping. Soft footsteps. Always just behind me. The night was heavy. Fog clung to the edges of the highway, thick and pale. My headlights barely cut through it. I kept my hands light on the wheel. The hum of the engine filled the emptiness around me. Somewhere, far ahead, a tree shivered in the wind. Then I saw it. A pair of dim headlights in my side mirror. They followed me, patient. I glanced forward. The road stretched empty. No other cars, nothing. The radio flickered. A soft static buzzed, then silence. Then the faintest whispering, words I didn't understand. The headlights stayed, steady, watching, almost. Too quiet. I forced my eyes back to the mirror. And that's when I saw the face, pale, smooth, sitting in the back seat, turning toward me, expressionless. I blinked. Gone. The reflection showed only the empty road behind me. My heart began to thump in soft, uneven rhythms. I told myself it was a trick. Fog, reflection, exhaustion, but then the radio crackled. Static. Rising, whispering my name. I didn't answer. The road seemed longer now. Each mile stretched thin. The headlights returned closer, though I hadn't moved faster. I checked the mirror again. Empty. Relief washed over me. And then, movement. The shadow of the person shifted. Closer to the driver's side, watching, waiting. I tried to focus on the road. The lines faded under the mist. Something rustled in the back seat. I dared a glance. The face was there again. Its eyes hollow, unblinking, silent. And it smiled, small, almost polite, but cold. I shivered. The wheel felt slippery under my palms. The road blurred. A horn echoed somewhere behind me. But no one came, just me. And that face? I blinked again. Gone. The mirror only held my own reflection. I wanted to believe it. The fog thickened. Soft footsteps or maybe whispers followed in my ears. Every turn of the wheel echoed too loudly. I told myself to slow down. Breathe. Listen. The radio went quiet. Then a flash of movement. A hand against the back window, pale in the dim light. Slow. Gentle. Almost as if inviting me to look closer. I didn't. I couldn't. My eyes were locked on the road ahead, but I knew. I knew it was there. The air grew colder inside the car. A soft hum filled the space behind me. I could feel it, more than see it. The headlights behind me stayed dim, steady. And in the rearview mirror, for just a heartbeat, I saw it again. The face, closer this time. Eyes empty, and smiling, then nothing. Just the highway, empty, silent. I wanted to stop, but fear and habit pushed me forward. Miles passed. The fog thinned. The radio whispered no more. Yet every reflective surface, the mirror, the window, the dark glass of my dashboard, held a suggestion of something waiting. Just beyond what I could see, the headlights never came back. The back seat stayed empty. And still I felt watched. The road curved. A soft rustle of wind brushed my neck. I glanced again. Nothing. The night continued as it always did. Long, quiet, and unending. But sometimes, in the side mirror, I swear I see the dim shape. A pale face just for a moment, and then it blinks out of existence. I drive on, alone, yet never quite alone. The highway had been empty for miles. Night had settled in like a thin gray sheet. The rest stop appeared out of the fog, pale light flickering across cracked windows. I slowed the car. No other cars. Not a single soul. From the distance came music. Soft, careful, harmonized. A choir, though the lot was empty. I parked. The engine's hum dissolved into the night. I stepped out. The voices continued pulling me closer. They were gentle, almost sad, echoing across the asphalt. The rhythm slow, deliberate. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of damp concrete and old coffee grounds. I could see my breath, a thin veil curling into the dark. Footsteps, maybe mine, but softer, slower than usual. I reached the edge of the lot. The music grew clearer. I could almost make out words, fragments like prayers or old hymns. No one. The building was empty. Windows opaque with grime. I leaned closer to the doorway. A shadow flickered past. It moved strangely. Slower than walking should allow, stretching and folding into itself. The singing stopped. Abruptly. A silence so deep it pressed against my chest. I waited. The fog shifted. Something scraped against the floor inside. I wanted to turn away, but I couldn't. The hum returned, a single note this time, vibrating beneath my ribs. Light shivered through a crack in the doorway. Shapes moved behind the windows. Not quite human, not quite anything. I thought I saw eyes. Or maybe the reflection of mine, stretched thin. The shadow didn't move like a person, but it wasn't still either. My feet found the cracked concrete without thought. Each step echoed, swallowed almost immediately by the lot. The air felt thicker here, heavy with breath that wasn't mine. A harmonized note rose again. Soft. Melancholy. I realized it wasn't coming from inside. The music floated around me. Underneath it, a whisper of rustling. Chairs scraping, though no chairs had moved in years. I thought I felt a presence just behind my shoulder. I froze. A pale light reflected off the windows. The shadow lingered in the doorway. I stepped closer, drawn by the impossibility. The air was colder than it should be. Something pressed against my skin, soft as a sigh, but unmistakable. Then nothing. The light dimmed. The air stilled. The choir had vanished. I thought about leaving. About the warmth of the car, the quiet hum of the engine. But something held me. Curiosity, fear, or perhaps the music itself. Slow footsteps echoed inside. Too slow to be human, too rhythmic to be accidental. I couldn't tell if they approached or receded. The rest stop's neon sign flickered. Red and blue cut through the fog like knives. The shadow wasn't in the doorway anymore. I leaned my head against the frame. The air smelled of wet wood and fading paper. Then the faintest hum returned, threading itself around my ears. I realized I had stopped breathing. The note lingered, hovering just out of reach, twisting into silence. And somewhere inside, the choir waited. I backed away slowly. The fog swallowed me up as if the world had folded itself around the empty lot. The singing didn't come back. But when I looked over my shoulder, a figure moved at the edge of vision. Slower than walking should allow, I walked to the car. The engine hummed to life. The lot remained empty. And yet, in the distance, a single note quivered through the fog. Soft, harmonized, waiting. The highway was empty. Night had settled like a damp cloth over the asphalt. Fog hovered low, curling around the reflectors and taillights ahead. I glanced at the mile markers, trying to anchor myself. 12, 12, 12, then 13, and then 13 again. The numbers repeated, or maybe I was losing track. The road stretched ahead, unbroken, as if it would never end. I tapped the brakes. the tires humming against the wet blacktop. The lines shimmered under the headlights, white and perfect. I thought about pulling over, but the shoulder dissolved into mist. It was like trying to step onto water. 13. There it was again. I blinked, harder this time. A mile marker, sharp and concrete, or maybe just a shadow. But it was the same one I had passed moments ago. A shape appeared on the line ahead. At first I thought it was a tree, warped by the fog. Then it moved. It tilted its head. I froze. Its gaze felt like it reached through the windshield, through the glass and metal, straight to me. It didn't wave or call out. Just watched. My hands clenched the wheel. The road under me seemed endless, stretching beyond the horizon. Pulling over wasn't an option. Not really. 13. I tried to count. Was it the same marker? Or had I circled back without knowing it? The figure didn't step forward. It stayed where it was, balanced on the line, tilting, swaying slightly. A breath of wind carried something, rustling leaves. Or clothing? I couldn't tell. The headlights flickered as if uncertain. The fog thickened and the marker faded. Then in its place another appeared. 13. I thought of turning around. The wheel resisted. The road held me, long and straight, like a pulse I couldn't escape. Each mile marker whispered the same number. 13. The figure shifted again. Its head tilted a little more. The longer I looked, the less I remembered why I had been driving at all, or where I had started. The hum of the engine became louder, louder than it should have been. Then quiet. Not a total silence, but a hollow ringing like the space around me was empty. The tires hummed over asphalt, but the sound was hollow, distant. I noticed the reflection in the side mirror. Mist curled over the metal frame. Nothing else. No lights, no cars, no guardrails. Just fog and the endless line of white. 13. The number mocked me. I tried to measure distance, to find landmarks. Nothing made sense. Every tree, every shadow, every curve felt familiar, yet wrong. I blinked and the figure was closer. It hadn't moved, I realized. The road had moved around it. Time bent. Or maybe I did. My pulse slowed, or maybe the world did. Headlights caught the wet paint of the line. The figure's eyes, or where eyes should be, gleamed faintly. I didn't look away. I tried speaking, whispering my own name. It dissolved into the fog before it could reach me. I thought I heard a step, soft, scraping the line behind me. Then nothing. Another mile marker appeared. 13. And then another. 13. The fog began to lift in patches, revealing glimpses of forest, of guardrails, of the familiar shape of the road. But the marker stayed the same. 13. The numbers endless. I drove, slower now. The figure stayed ahead on the line, tilting its head, just watching. A shadow in white light. Something I had seen before. I couldn't remember where or when. The line stretched infinite. My hands shook, gripping the wheel like it could anchor me to something real. I realized the figure was smiling. Not a grin, but the subtle curve of something human. And yet, wrong. It made no sound, but I felt the air shift, cold against my skin, pressing against my chest. The markers blurred again. 13. Everywhere. No beginning, no end. I couldn't tell which direction I had come from, or if I had ever left. The road swallowed everything else, the hum of tires, the fog, the faint stars overhead. Only the line remained, only the figure, and the mile marker, repeating. I breathed out, slowly. The engine thrummed softly beneath me. The figure tilted its head once more, then disappeared into the fog. I was still driving, still counting. 13. And then I thought I saw something, just at the corner of my eye. A shadow following, matching every curve of the line. But when I looked directly, there was nothing. The fog swallowed it again. I didn't stop. Couldn't stop, the road whispered, and I understood that I had been here before. Maybe I always had. The road was empty. Night pressed in from both sides, thick and almost tangible. Fog hovered low over the asphalt, softening the edges of the world. I saw it first as a dull glow. A pair of headlights, steady and bright, reflecting in wet asphalt. A truck, idling at the side of the road, engine humming like a quiet heartbeat. I slowed. The hum filled the space around me. It was calm. Familiar almost, like the sound of someone breathing in the dark. I waved. A small gesture, nervous. The cab was dark, shadowed, no movement. The driver didn't turn. The hum continued, steady, almost patient. I passed, a glance over my shoulder. The truck? Gone, no lights, no glow, no engine. Just the faint, lingering hum in my ears. I blinked. The world seemed unchanged except the tire tracks, fresh, deep, leading off the asphalt, into the woods. They disappeared into the fog, curling around unseen trees. I slowed again. Breath caught. Part of me wanted to chase, to follow. Another part whispered, "Stop." The fog swallowed the tracks almost as soon as my headlights touched them. It was thick, damp, brushing my arms through the open window. Every rustle of leaves felt exaggerated, like the forest itself was listening. I couldn't see the end. Only shadows of trees, twisted and pale in the headlights' reach. The hum from the truck lingered. Soft, distant, impossible to locate. I parked. Engine off. The world was silent. Footsteps. Soft. Almost careful. I held my breath. Nothing moved. The woods seemed to stretch farther than they should, deeper than reason allowed. And yet, the tracks were there, leading somewhere I couldn't name. A light mist curled around my ankles. I stepped forward, drawn, then stopped, a snapping twig behind me. I turned. Nothing but fog and the suggestion of trees. The hum returned. Soft now, almost a whisper. Not mechanical. Not human. I swallowed hard. The air was thick, damp with cold. It filled my lungs, made my chest ache with the urge to run. I thought of the truck. The driver. Did it wait, or had it been a trick of my eyes? I couldn't tell. The tracks led on, winding deeper into the shadowed forest. I wanted to follow, but the instinct to stay put pressed harder. Silence fell, sudden, almost sharp in its clarity. No hum, no rustle, nothing. The fog pressed closer, whispering across my skin. I thought I heard soft footsteps retreating, or maybe advancing. I couldn't tell. A pale light shifted through the trees, momentary, flickering, then gone. I turned back toward the road. The asphalt stretched empty, glowing faintly beneath the fog. No truck, no tracks, yet the memory remained. The hum in my ears, the weight of eyes I couldn't see. I drove slowly. Every shadow seemed to linger just a fraction too long. Every bend promised a glimpse of something familiar, something that had vanished. At the next curve, the fog thinned. Road markings reappeared beneath my tires. And still the forest seemed to exhale behind me. I glanced once more over my shoulder. No trace of the truck. Only the fog curling, retreating, and yet somehow alive. I didn't look back again. The road ahead was empty, but the memory of the tracks, twisting into that unknowable darkness, it stayed with me. And sometimes at night when the engine hums low in the driveway, I swear I hear it again, fading, approaching, never fully gone. The highway stretched thin under the pale wash of night. Fog curled along the edges of the road, slow and deliberate, like it had time to wait for me. I kept my hands on the wheel, knuckles pale, listening. Above, the exit signs flickered faintly. At first, I thought it was the usual reflection of headlights, but then the letters shifted just a fraction, forming words I didn't remember reading. Next right. Follow, it whispered. I blinked. No other cars moved. Just the hum of my engine and a distant wind through the guardrails. I took the exit. The asphalt narrowed, a single ribbon cutting through the dark. Trees leaned close on either side, branches scratching at the edges of my vision. The signs above grew insistent, quiet but clear. Keep going. Don't turn back. I didn't want to obey, but something lighter than fear tugged my body forward. Shadows shifted under the street lamps. They weren't like ordinary shadows. They bent, reaching, stretching across the road like fingers brushing against the tires. I tried to focus on the lines of the road, but the trees seemed to bend in, closer than physics allowed, a rustling faint, like a dozen dry hands raking leaves together. Every exit sign hummed now, low, vibrating through the glass of the windshield. Left ahead, straight, hurry! I didn't understand where it came from. Maps didn't have this path. GPS couldn't find it. The fog thickened, coiling around the mirrors. Lights on the signs flickered pale green, then red, then green again. A pattern, a rhythm, a language I wasn't supposed to read. I caught a movement in the corner of my eye. A figure, or maybe just a tree, hovering at the edge of the shoulder. It didn't step forward. It didn't step back. It just waited. My pulse slowed, almost drowned in the quiet that stretched between whispers. I could hear my own breath, shallow and rapid, mingling with the low hum of the road. Every so often, a sign nudged me with another phrase. Almost there. Don't stop. The road curved sharply. The trees leaned harder now, trunks thick, knotted and alive with something that wasn't quite wood. Their shadows spilled across the pavement, pooling and crawling toward me. I thought about turning around. But each time I glanced in the rear view, the fog erased what was behind me. Nothing. Empty highway. No exit, no lights. I drove slower. Each sign seemed to whisper directly to my chest now. Here, this way, forward. The voice wasn't human, but it wasn't cruel. It was expectant. A sudden breeze rattled the leaves. It smelled like wet soil and old smoke. The figure, or the shape, stood closer, now at the edge of the lane, perfectly still. I reached the apex of the curve. The exit sign pulsed above, pale green, humming through my bones. I swear it almost smiled. Then the road opened to a small clearing. No buildings, no lights, just the soft whisper of the trees. The signs disappeared. Only one remained. End of the way. I stopped the car. Silence pressed against the glass. I could hear the rustling of leaves, the hum fading into the distance. For a moment, I thought it was over, but the air held a different weight, a pause like the night was holding its breath. A shadow slid across the hood, long and thin, before melting back into the darkness. I stepped out. The ground was soft, damp. Mist licked my ankles. No road stretched before me, no signs. Only the leaning trees and the faintest echo of whispers. I thought about calling someone, but my phone had no signal. Even the stars seemed muted, swallowed by fog. I took a single step forward, and the whispers returned, gentle, guiding. But the words didn't match the road I remembered. I don't know how long I stood there. Time was just a slow exhale, a suspended pause, and then I realized the exit signs weren't leading me anywhere I could return from. Only deeper, only through the quiet that had been waiting all along. I turned back toward the car. It felt smaller, further away. The whispers swirled around me like wind through hollow bones. I took another step, and another. The fog closed in. The trees bent closer, waiting. And I kept moving, guided by the soft insistence of signs that might never exist again. The rest stop was empty. Fog rolled in from the highway, settling over the asphalt like cold breath. Even the gas pumps looked tired, their plastic casing dulled under the pale light. The streetlights above hummed. Not the usual high-pitched whine of old bulbs. This was low, vibrating. A tremor in the air that made my teeth ache. I parked near the edge of the lot, the hum thrumming through my chest. It didn't feel mechanical. It felt alive. Shadows moved across the pavement. They didn't belong to anything I could see. One stretched long, then split into another. I leaned against my door, staring up at the flickering lights. They swayed rhythmically as if someone was brushing against them from above. A cold gust whispered past, carrying something metallic, sharp. I wasn't alone. Every instinct screamed to leave, but my legs stayed. The hum grew, pulsing. It reached inside my head, pressing, curling around my thoughts. Then the lights dimmed. Not gradually, like someone had drawn a curtain over them. And the hum stopped. Silence. It was heavier than sound. The kind of silence that presses against your ears until you hear your own heartbeat clanging like a drum. I saw them first in the reflection of the glass door. Faces, pale, pressed close. Too many to count. Eyes wide and unblinking. Noses flattened. Lips parted. They weren't moving, but I could feel them moving, shifting, sliding closer in a slow, suffocating wave. I turned my head. Nothing. The lot was empty. Even the shadows had stopped dancing. I blinked. When I looked back at the glass, some had disappeared. Some were closer. their faces almost merging with my reflection, yet not mine. Soft footsteps echoed. Or maybe it was my own pulse skipping. I could feel it in my throat, the way it made me swallow too hard, too fast. One face lingered. Closer than the rest, its eyes hollow. The faintest glimmer of movement in the lips, like it was trying to speak. I couldn't hear it. I couldn't move. The fog thickened. It curled around the lights, around the cars, over the asphalt, swallowing the rest stop in a damp, clinging gray. I wanted to call out, but my voice was gone. My phone in my hand, screen black, refused to wake. Even the engine hummed quietly now, as if holding its breath. I thought I saw a hand lift from the glass, just a shadowed suggestion, then gone. The lights flickered back, pale, unsteady, and the faces were gone. Just reflections again, I exhaled, a shaky, whispering sound that seemed too loud in the quiet. The hum had returned, lower this time, almost mournful. I tried to convince myself it was fatigue, the stress of the road, the late hour. But the lot still felt wrong, empty yet suffocating. A car passed the highway beyond. Its headlights streaked through the fog, washing everything in white for a heartbeat. Then gone, and in that heartbeat, I thought I saw eyes in the mist. Not reflected, not in the glass, just out there, waiting. The humming grew softer, almost a lullaby. I could feel it vibrating through my chest again, but less insistent, more patient, like it had paused for me to watch, to wait. I touched the glass, cold, solid, normal. Yet the warmth of those unseen faces lingered, pressing through the barrier, leaving a residue of breath on my skin. The fog shifted. The streetlights blinked once, then steadied. I could see the edge of the lot again. My car, the highway stretching beyond. I got in, doors locked. The engine started smoothly. The hum faded to nothing. The rest stop disappeared behind me in the rearview mirror. Pale lights receded into the mist. Shadows dissolved, but sometimes, at night when the road is empty, I swear I can still hear it. A faint, low vibration, like the rest stop is somewhere just beyond the fog. Waiting. And if I glance too long in any darkened window, I think I see them again. Faces, pale and quiet. Pressing close, watching. I was driving late. The highway stretched out in front of me, endless black under a pale, clouded moon. The fog had begun to settle, curling low over the shoulder. A figure appeared just ahead, slender, shivering, barely moving. I slowed. She, or it, stood there, trembling, eyes downcast, pale as if the night itself had washed the color from her skin. I could see the damp of the fog soaking through her clothes. I hesitated. Something about the way she didn't speak made my chest tighten, and yet I felt the pull of that emptiness beside me. Sliding the door open, I whispered, "Do you need a ride?" No answer. Just the soft rustle of wet fabric and breath that smelled faintly of cold metal. She got in. The car felt colder immediately, a hollow chill that brushed my shoulders and sank into my chest. I glanced at her, eyes closed, hands folded in her lap. The road hummed beneath the tires. I tried to speak, tried to break the silence, but words seemed wrong, heavy in the air. Her hair clung to her pale neck. I watched the droplets fall from the ends like tiny, deliberate tears. The rear view reflected nothing but shadow. At the next bend, the headlights caught her face. Too white, too still. And for the briefest moment, I thought I saw the corners of her mouth twitch into a smile that didn't belong. I swallowed. The road ahead blurred with fog and memory. Somewhere, far off, a crow called, and the sound echoed like it came from inside the car. Her hands moved then, slowly, lifting to the dashboard. I felt the cold brush of her fingers before I saw them. A handprint pressed against the glass, fading but not gone. I blinked. She had leaned forward for no reason I could name. The world outside seemed quieter, as if it too was holding its breath. I tried to speak again. Where are you going?" No answer. Her presence filled the seat, yet I could feel emptiness pressing against the edges of it. The fog grew thicker. Streetlights flickered in the distance, pale bulbs humming with uncertainty. And then I glanced back. The seat was empty. The jacket, the hair, the slight shiver of her, gone. Only the faint chill lingered, curling along my spine like smoke. My hands gripped the wheel harder. The handprint on the dashboard trembled in my vision, a white smear against the black vinyl. It was cold to the touch, but fading, dissolving slowly, leaving the seat intact and empty. I exhaled. The road stretched on, unbroken, silent except for my tires and breath. I kept my eyes forward, kept my hands steady. But in every glance at the mirror, every flicker of the dashboard light, I felt her. A presence hovering just behind perception. Soft, patient, waiting. At the next curve, I slowed again. Nothing was there. Nothing but fog curling over the white lines, and yet I could feel it, a weight, impossible to lift. A shadow I hadn't invited but could not escape. The handprint had faded completely. The seat was empty, untouched. And still, I knew it had been there. I drove on. The highway unraveling beneath me. Each mile a pulse, a memory, a quiet accusation. Sometimes I think I see her out of the corner of my eye. Pale and still, waiting at the edge of the fog. Silent, shivering, as if the world forgot her somewhere between streetlights and darkness. I don't stop anymore. I can't. And yet every time the dashboard catches the light just right, I swear I feel it, cold fingers lingering. Even now I can't tell if it was a warning or a farewell I was never meant to hear. The car smelled faintly of cold leather. Fog pressed against the windows like a damp cloth. I was driving late, though I don't remember leaving. The radio hummed quietly. A soft song lingered, one I couldn't name. Then it vanished. Static. A low crackle like the hum of electricity through wet wires. I turned the dial. Nothing. And then, my name. Soft. Drawn out. Alex. I froze. The wheels rolled on anyway. The fog swallowed the road ahead. The static thickened. It shifted, fluctuating, murmuring fragments of words I shouldn't hear. Don't turn. I laughed quietly, though it was hollow. I was alone. Of course I was. The radio spat another burst of static. Behind the words broke apart. The song returned for a second. Then static again, sharper. I touched the dial, spinning it, trying to find silence. It didn't work. The static followed me. A voice whispered, almost friendly, almost familiar. Remember? I gripped the wheel tighter. The fog blurred the world outside into gray shapes. The lights of passing cars glared and disappeared like ghosts. And in that moment, the radio shifted, clearer now. A fragment of a conversation. He's here. Don't answer. I swallowed. The back seat felt colder. Not air, but presence. I dared not look. The road twisted. I thought I saw a shadow in the rearview mirror. It moved when I did. Static again. This time it wasn't just noise. It was breathing. A rhythm. Alex? Turn around. I wanted to stop. But the car kept moving, sliding over wet asphalt. The radio hummed against my ribs. It was soft now, almost tender, and yet I heard things I couldn't name. Small fragments, a laugh, a door closing, footsteps across empty rooms. Each sound etched a prickle under my skin. I drove past familiar landmarks, though not familiar enough. The diner I thought I knew was dark, shuttered. A single neon sign flickered, humming. And the radio whispered almost... I tried to convince myself it was memory. A trick of my mind. Static can sound like voices. Can't it? The line broke. The song returned. But under it faintly, something remained. Behind you. I checked the mirrors again. Nothing, yet I felt it. The weight of being watched, tracked, catalogued. The fog pressed closer. The song warped. Each note bent toward a warning I didn't want to hear. A calendar of moments I hadn't remembered passing. I slowed the car, hoped that stopping would stop the murmurs. It didn't. Static climbed the volume of my chest. I thought about turning the radio off, then realized I couldn't. It wasn't a knob. Not anymore. A streetlight blinked overhead. I felt it, like the air itself had shifted. Not cold, not warm. Wrong. You can't hide. My hands tightened on the wheel. The fog outside became a wall of gray. I couldn't see the end of the road. I couldn't see the radio's reflection in the windshield either. The murmurs slowed. Words fractured into nothing. Then silence. For a long moment, the world held its breath with me. The car engine's hum felt louder than it should. I dared a glance back. Nothing. But I couldn't shake the sense that something had followed me this far. The radio clicked softly. Just a whisper now, or maybe it wasn't the radio at all. The road stretched ahead, fog and shadow and pale light. I pressed forward. The static lingered, faint, at the edge of hearing, always just behind me. The lights flickered once, then steadied, leaving pale rectangles along the cracked linoleum floor. Outside, the wind pressed against the old glass doors, rattling them like faint, hollow whispers. I stepped inside, boots echoing too sharply in the emptiness. The air smelled metallic, heavy. It clung to the back of my throat, a taste I couldn't spit out. Shelves leaned at odd angles, dust motes drifting in the sharp slices of light. Cans lined the shelves, their labels faded, their shapes familiar yet wrong. I brushed a hand over one. It wobbled. Then all of them shivered together, tiny tremors that rattled down the aisle. I froze. No wind could reach this far inside. Only me, standing in the hum of fluorescent light. A soft scraping came from the next aisle. I whispered my own name. Nothing answered. Footsteps behind me. Quick but hesitant, I turned, empty. The echo of my boots filled the space again. I tried to tell myself it was just the floorboards, but the echo sounded wrong. Too long, too hollow. It lingered, like someone had stepped in exactly the same rhythm behind me. I walked deeper, past the snacks that smelled faintly of rust and sugar. A bell above the door tinkled, though the door hadn't moved. The fluorescent hum softened, as if the light itself were holding its breath. A whisper, soft, wet almost. It tickled the back of my ear. I turned again, nothing. The aisles stretched like a maze now. I had been here a minute or an hour, I couldn't tell. Each step seemed louder than the last. The echoes stretching, bouncing. The air grew thicker. Every breath tasted of iron. I reached the back, where the refrigerators stood like pale sentinels. Their glass doors fogged, though nothing should have been cold. A shadow flickered across the shelves. Or maybe it was a trick of the light. I could feel it behind me, always just beyond the corner of my vision. A can fell, rolled toward my foot, stopped. The silence pressed in. Then another. And another. I tried to move faster. The floor seemed to stretch, endless beneath my boots. The hum of the lights grew louder in my ears, a vibration in my skull. Something whispered again. Closer this time, a name. Mine. I spun. Nothing, only my reflection in the fogged glass. I stared too long. Something in the reflection lingered behind me, a movement I couldn't explain. The registers sat in the front like dark eyes. I approached. Coins clinked in the drawers. But the drawers were empty. The clinking continued, soft, insistent. I pressed my palm to one drawer. It was warm, breathing warmth, a soft scuffing like someone dragging their shoes across the floor. But the echo came from the ceiling now, from the corners, from everywhere at once. I stopped. I listened. And then the whispering faded. Replaced by silence, I wanted to run, but my legs felt heavy. The metallic taste filled my mouth again. My reflection in the glass stared back, pale, sweating. I didn't move. I couldn't. The wind outside dropped suddenly. And with it, the faint smell of gasoline. It clung to the air stronger than before. Every breath burned a little more. Then, just behind the registers, a shadow stretched along the wall. Not mine, not quite human. It moved, slow and deliberate. I blinked. Gone. The light hummed steadily now. The cans were still. The air thick, but unmoving. I stepped outside. The door creaked shut behind me. No echo followed. No whisper. Only the wind, dragging something faint, metallic along the asphalt. I turned to look back. The gas station stood empty, silent, waiting. Or maybe it had never been empty at all. The night was still. Fog clung to the overpass like a damp cloth. My headlights cut through it, barely reaching the edge of the road. The air smelled of wet asphalt and rust. I could hear my own breath, uneven, sharp. The tires hummed against the bridge's metal ribs, steady, monotonous. I shouldn't have been out this late. The road stretched empty in both directions. But the highway has a way of drawing you in. Beneath the overpass, the shadows moved. I slowed, squinting through the dim light. At first I thought it was my imagination, shapes bending, twisting against the concrete pillars. One paused. It looked up. Hollow eyes catching the weak glow of my headlights. A face, pale and still, that felt wrong to look at. The bridge groaned above me. A shiver ran through my spine, cold and electric. I swallowed, gripping the wheel. The shadow didn't flinch. It just stared. I blinked. The figure shifted sideways. A long, silent movement that whispered across the empty street. I wanted to look away. I couldn't. The metal of the overpass trembled. A low hum pressed against my ears, deep, vibrating. I pressed harder on the brakes, but the car moved only a little. The hum rose, a soft pulse, like the bridge itself was breathing. The shadow moved again. Closer now, though the street remained empty. It paused beneath a pillar, tilting its head. The eyes followed me. Hollow, patient, I felt the air tighten around me. It smelled faintly of something burned. I swallowed hard. My throat was dry. The fog wrapped closer to the windows, pale and heavy. A rustling came from the railing above, soft footsteps. Or maybe it was the wind. I couldn't tell. Every instinct told me to move. I drove a little forward. The bridge quivered once, sharply, then settled. Nothing else moved. Yet I felt watched. Every shadow seemed to breathe with me. The hollow eyes had vanished. I blinked again, and the space beneath the overpass was empty. Too empty. The fog made everything unreal, like the world had thinned at the edges. I slowed to a crawl. Every breath came in small, quiet bursts. A whisper of movement grazed the side mirror. Nothing visible. But I knew it had been there. The bridge hummed under me once more. It was not a sound of the car, not the highway. It came from somewhere older, deeper, something waiting in the steel and shadow. I told myself it was imagination. The mind plays tricks in the fog, it said, but the smell lingered. Something iron-like, cold, wrong. I forced my eyes ahead. The overpass stretched forward, empty and still. The shadows had withdrawn. The silence pressed against the windshield. I could hear only my own pulse now. Every now and then the fog would swirl. A flicker of movement at the periphery. A pause that made me hold my breath. The bridge shivered again. I felt the vibrations in my chest. I drove on, slow, cautious. But even as the streetlights returned, the memory of hollow eyes lingered. A shape waiting somewhere under the cold concrete. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Nothing but fog and steel. Yet the feeling of being followed, of watched, settled deep into my bones. When the overpass finally disappeared behind me, the road stretched quiet and mundane. But the bridge was there in my mind, shivering softly, holding its secret beneath the pale light. I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The shadow might still be there, waiting. And maybe it always would be. The highway was quiet. Too quiet. Even the hum of my tires against the asphalt seemed distant, swallowed by the night. Neon signs flickered intermittently, red, blue, pale green. Each one caught my eye, though I couldn't tell if it was the color or the movement. They weren't normal signs. The shapes shifted. Sometimes, just for a heartbeat, they formed eyes. Pale, watchful eyes, blinking slowly, like they were trying to study me. I blinked back, hoping it was my imagination, but the eyes didn't vanish. Exit signs winked at me. Each one beckoned, a silent invitation. I didn't want to leave the road, but curiosity pressed against my chest, soft and insistent. I passed the first exit. The neon eyes followed, lingering in my peripheral vision. They weren't on poles. They hovered above the asphalt, between the trees, in the fog. The air grew thick. A haze, low and clinging, wrapped around my headlights. Everything smelled faintly of rain, though the asphalt was dry. Static hummed in my ears, faint at first, then louder, like whispered words I couldn't quite understand. Another sign winked. Green, then red, then gone. I caught the corner of it in my mirror. It smiled. I shouldn't have turned. But the road curved. And then the world shifted. A flash. White. Blinding. The tires spun over nothing for a moment. And then, stillness. I was somewhere else. No highway. No neon eyes. Just fog that moved against me as though it had a pulse. Shapes emerged. Tall, thin. They didn't walk. They hovered, gliding slowly. Their outlines were pale, barely there, like smoke in the moonlight. I stepped out of the car. The air was cold. Soft footsteps or echoes of them brushed against my ears. I turned, but nothing was behind me. The fog whispered. Or maybe the whispers came from me. I couldn't tell. Every time I tried to speak, my words twisted into static, vanishing before they reached my lips. I wandered or drifted. Time was wrong here. Minutes stretched into something longer, heavier. Every neon memory from the highway flickered behind my eyes, burning like pale fire. Then movement. A shape closer now. Its face a smear of light. Neon eyes, exactly like the signs. Watching me, I couldn't breathe, or maybe I was holding my breath for hours. The eyes blinked in slow rhythm. The fog parted slightly, revealing an exit. I didn't want it. I shouldn't move toward it. But the shape? It waited, patient, softly urging. A hum rose in the distance. It wasn't sound. It was more like vibration, threading through my chest, through the soles of my shoes, through my skull. It pulsed with the flicker of memory. Another flash, white again, brighter this time. And I was back. The highway, the familiar asphalt stretching under the pale moonlight. But nothing was the same. Neon signs blinked at me differently now. Their shapes, sharper, more deliberate, eyes winking with intention. And the exits, each one promised something I wasn't ready to take. The hum lingered. The fog clung a little closer. Even the static in my ears whispered, as if I'd brought a piece of that place back with me. I drove, slowly, never stopping. But the highway remembered. It remembered the white flashes, the hovering shapes, the beckoning eyes. Sometimes in the rearview mirror, I think I see a shape rising from the fog. Just for a second. Too pale to be real. But watching, and I know the eyes will find me again. One day at some forgotten exit. Waiting, patient, blinking, even now. I feel them. The highway stretched empty beneath a silver fog. I could barely see the lines on the asphalt. The air smelled faintly of rain, though the sky had long been clear. A shape emerged ahead. A toll booth glowing pale under a single flickering light. It felt wrong. No other cars. No sound except the soft hum of my engine. I slowed. The attendant was there. Pale as the mist. Silent. He held out a hand. A ticket floated toward me. I took it. The paper was blank. Or maybe not. Just 3 dots. I blinked. The booth felt smaller now, almost fragile. I drove on, my tires rolling through a stillness that pressed against my ears. I should have thought it strange. The emptiness. The way the fog seemed to follow the curves of the road. But curiosity, quiet, uninvited, kept me moving. Minutes later, the horizon bent. A familiar outline appeared. Another toll booth, the same pale light, the same silent man. The same ticket, floating, insistent. I gripped the wheel. 3 dots, ellipses. I tried an exit. The road twisted, bending impossibly. And there it was again. Another booth. My chest felt hollow. The air smelled of wet cement, like a place unfinished. The fog thickened at the edges of my vision. I thought of turning around. But the road behind was gone. Or maybe it never had been. The fog swallowed it, leaving only forward. Each booth appeared closer than the last, as if they waited for me. The attendant never blinked, never spoke, just handed the ticket. I touched the paper once. Cold, almost damp, though I couldn't explain why. I tried to read more than the 3 dots, but nothing. Silence wrapped me like a cloth. I stopped once. Not at a booth, just to breathe. The fog pressed around my tires. I imagined shadows slipping along the road behind me, a soft rustle. Something moving just beyond the mist. I told myself it was wind, or maybe trees. Then the hum of the highway returned, but not the sound I remembered. It vibrated differently, low and unsteady, as if the road itself exhaled. Another booth. This one too close. I could see the faint outline of the man's eyes beneath the pale light. Empty. Still waiting. I wanted to speak. My voice caught, lodged somewhere behind my throat. The ticket hovered. 3 dots. 3 dots. 3 dots. I reached out, felt the paper brush against my fingers. It pulsed softly, like it had a heartbeat of its own. I looked up at the road ahead. The fog rolled in waves, white and choking. And then I saw it. An endless stretch of booths, faint lights flickering like candles in the mist. I drove. I had to. Or maybe it drove me. The highway twisted in impossible loops. I tried to count the booths. I lost track after 7, after 20. After 100, I stopped trying. They would always return. My eyes burned from the fog and the soft, insistent glow. I thought of getting out. But the air pressed close, whispering around my ears. Somewhere, a soft footstep. Or was it the booth itself? Followed. I turned onto what seemed like an exit. The mist parted. I thought for a moment I would escape, and then the same booth. Same attendant. Same ticket floating in the pale light. 3 dots. I drove on. I counted the ellipses over and over. The fog thickened with every mile. The booths multiplied, stretching into infinity. Somewhere the night sighed. Somewhere the highway waited. And I drove, endlessly, between pale lights and silent hands, 3 dots marking the road behind me, 3 dots marking the road ahead. The mist whispered my name. Or maybe I whispered it myself. Either way, the highway held its breath, and the booths waited. The highway stretched empty beneath the pale haze of early morning. Fog clung to the edges of the road, thick and slow, curling over the asphalt like smoke. I was driving, but the world felt paused, blurred shapes drifting just beyond my headlights. At first, it was just a shadow, a flicker at the corner of my eye. Then I noticed it, a figure walking alongside the lane. It kept pace with me. No matter how fast I drove, it remained, legs moving in perfect rhythm, silent, purposeful. I glanced into the rearview mirror. Nothing. No shape. No figure. Just fog rolling in from the roadside. The radio was silent. Even the hum of the engine seemed distant, swallowed by the mist. I tried to convince myself I had imagined it. But the fog whispered. Softly at first, like breath against my ear. Then longer, drawn-out murmurs that made my chest tighten. The figure appeared again. Closer now. Just beyond the shoulder. Its outline vague, wavering like it was stitched from the fog itself. I blinked. It was gone. A trick of the fog, maybe. My hands gripped the wheel tighter. The air inside the car tasted damp, heavy with the scent of wet asphalt. Each passing mile stretched longer than the last. I tried to focus on the road. The dashed lines shimmered in the headlights, dissolving into white streaks. But the sense of being followed persisted, a weight pressing against my spine. A soft movement in the fog caught my eye. A step here, a shift there, always matching my speed. I looked again, nothing. The highway remained empty. The streetlights flickered overhead, pale halos in the mist. Shadows pooled beneath them, stretched by fog and distance. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw the figure standing in the middle of the road. Then it was gone. I could feel it in my chest, a pulse just beyond sight. I drove faster. The whispers returned, low and lingering, curling around the edges of my thoughts. I couldn't catch words, only a rhythm, like a language half-remembered. The windshield began to fog from my breath. I wiped it, but the image behind the glass shifted anyway, a movement in the corner of my vision. I turned my head slightly. Empty shoulder, empty lane. And yet, I knew it had been there. The fog thickened. It rose like smoke through the tires, curling around the car, filling every crevice. I felt trapped, not by walls, but by air itself. Something brushed the side of my window. I jumped, heart hammering, but the glass was dry. The fog whispered, soft, teasing, unbroken. I slowed. Maybe if I drove slower, it would leave me. Maybe if I stopped, a shape rose ahead in the mist. Tall, pale, featureless. I froze, gripping the wheel. It didn't move toward me. It didn't move away. It simply existed, there on the asphalt, wrapped in fog. I blinked, and it was gone. The highway stretched empty. Even the fog felt thinner, as if holding its breath. My pulse slowed. The whispers receded, leaving a quiet hum like distant static. I kept driving. Every now and then I felt it near, a presence brushing along the edge of my vision. Gone the moment I looked straight at it. The fog clung to me for miles. Soft, persistent, like a shadow I couldn't shake. I arrived at the next exit. Lights from the town ahead spilled faintly into the mist. I eased off the highway, leaving the fog behind, and yet in the rearview mirror, for just a second I thought I saw it again. Walking slowly, keeping pace, then it vanished. The streetlights seemed warmer here, the fog thinner, but the quiet lingered, settling in my chest. A whisper I couldn't place, but could never forget. Even now, when I close my eyes, I feel it walking beside me. Soft, patient, waiting in the fog, the rest stop smelled of cold concrete and faint oil. It was late, almost too late for anyone to be here. The fluorescent lights hummed above, pale and unsteady. I moved down the narrow corridor, my footsteps soft against the tiled floor. Mirrors lined the walls, each one tall and waiting. I glanced at my reflection. It didn't move with me. A fraction of a second behind, my eyes lagged, my head tilted slower than mine. I froze, listening to the hum, the distant drip of water somewhere behind the vending machines. The delay stretched, a slow, impossible imitation. I reached out a hand, expecting my reflection to mirror it perfectly. It didn't. Instead, it smiled, a small, sharp curl of lips that I hadn't made. The corners of its eyes tightened. I jerked back, heart quiet but loud, and it kept smiling. I turned away, blinking, trying to shake the unease. The air felt heavier, as if the mirrors themselves were breathing. I heard something, soft, almost beneath hearing, a scrape along the tile. When I turned back, more faces were there. One by one, reflections appeared, pale and grinning without permission. They didn't speak, didn't blink. They just leaned forward slightly, waiting. I took a step back. The hallway seemed longer now, stretching beyond its walls. Shadows pooled in corners, thickening with every hesitant breath. The fluorescent light flickered again, and I thought I saw a hand reach out from one of the mirrors. I didn't move. I couldn't. Another reflection appeared beside me, older, thinner, eyes too dark to be mine. It tilted its head, watching, patient. The first one smiled wider, exposing teeth that gleamed too white. I swallowed hard. The silence pressed in. No hum, no drip, no scrape, just a suspended, trembling quiet. I forced myself to step closer, looking directly into the glass. The reflections froze. The smile stayed, fixed, waiting. I turned my head. The hallway behind me seemed unchanged, but the air felt colder. I tried to reason it away. Sleep deprivation. The long drive. My imagination stretched thin. Yet something deep in my chest warned me. These mirrors weren't simple glass. Another pause. The corridor bent slightly, like a line drawn wrong, imperceptibly off. The mirrors reflected the bending too, except the reflections didn't. I raised a hand. It rose slowly in the glass, lagging as before. Then it stopped, hovering mid-air. And the smile returned. I blinked hard. When I opened my eyes, the mirrors were empty. Cold, shiny, completely empty. No smile, no lagging shadow, no echo of me. I turned my back, pressed against the wall. The fluorescent lights flickered one last time before settling into dull, steady white. The corridor stretched silently ahead, mirrors like silent witnesses. I walked slowly, breath shallow, each step measured. The emptiness felt thicker now, oppressive, heavy. I kept expecting movement, a whisper, a reflection that wasn't mine. But nothing came. The vending machine hummed again. I heard the soft buzz of fluorescent lights far down the hallway. I dared not glance sideways. I reached the exit. The doors slid open with a whisper of air. Outside, the night was wet, slick under pale moonlight. The highway stretched endlessly, quiet, abandoned. I glanced back once. The rest stop stood silent, empty. Not a mirror, not a shadow, not a smile, yet the air felt wrong, heavy, waiting, like the reflections had stepped somewhere else just beyond sight. I drove on. The road ahead was clear, straight, empty. I tried to imagine it was over, the feeling dissipating. But I knew, somewhere behind me, something still followed. Not in the seat beside me, not in the rearview mirror. Somewhere just beyond the edges of what I could see. And when I glanced again, though I tried not to, I imagined a pale smile, slow, patient, waiting, shifting in rhythm with my own. The rest stop faded in the distance. Yet I could feel it lingering, a place that never truly forgets who passes through, and somewhere, the mirrors were waiting for the next reflection. The road was empty, stretched like a ribbon of black through the fog. My headlights barely cut through the mist, soft halos fading into gray. It was late. Too late. The car shuddered. A small jerk, almost polite, but enough to pull my attention. I eased it to the shoulder. I killed the engine. Silence followed. But not complete silence. A low hum remained, vibrating under me, through the seat, the pedals, the very floor of the car. I pressed the clutch. Nothing changed. The air smelled faintly metallic, like iron curling in the cold. I tried again. Turned the key. The engine groaned, alive, but not in the way it should. It wasn't my touch, it was... Watching, waiting, I opened the door. Cold air rushed in, carrying fog and the faint whisper of leaves. I crouched by the hood, hands trembling, and lifted it. Nothing. Shiny metal, pipes, wires, exactly as it should be. No leaks, no loose parts, no reason for the vibration, the hum. I leaned closer, listening. The hum was louder now, richer, almost like it knew I was there. It pulsed, a heartbeat under the metal echoing in the empty night. I stepped back, the streetlights faint through the mist. The road behind me was a smear of gray, stretching forever. Somewhere a tree branch scraped against another. Or maybe it was the wind. I turned the key again. The engine roared, no, hummed louder. The vibrations ran through me this time, not just the seat. A tremor in my chest. In my skull! I stumbled back, heart thumping too fast. The mist seemed thicker now, curling around the tires like smoke. And I noticed it, a shadow, long and pale, stretching from the rearview mirror. I blinked. It didn't move, but the hum did. It grew, filling the small cabin, pressing against my ears, humming secrets I couldn't understand. I tried to open the hood again. It resisted. The latch wouldn't move. A soft click somewhere beneath me, like a whisper beneath the engine's throat. I pressed my hands against the metal, searching. Nothing. Yet the vibrations, persistent, insistent, shook through my bones. I could feel it in my fingers, crawling up my arms, a cold awareness. I forced the key into the ignition once more. The engine screamed in hums and pulses louder than ever, echoing down the fogged road. It was no longer just the car. It was the night, the mist, the trees, all vibrating with it. The seat beneath me trembled. I tried to step out, but my legs felt heavy, anchored. The car wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to something patient, something waiting. The fog pressed closer, clinging to the doors, the hood, the mirrors. I could see my breath, curled in the cold, trembling like a soft warning. The engine's hum took on rhythm, like footsteps pacing around me, just out of sight. I leaned against the frame, pressing my ear to the metal. The hum answered, almost conversational, gentle in its insistence, a vibration that spoke without words, filling the hollow spaces of my chest. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run, but every step I took felt delayed, drawn out, as if time itself slowed to keep me here. The road stretched ahead, endless. The trees leaned in, shadows like fingers. I tried to focus on something else, the fog, the chill, the lonely streetlight ahead. But the engine had its own will. It vibrated louder, as though testing my thoughts, sifting through the fear that sat like stone in my stomach. I touched the hood again, this time with certainty. It pulsed beneath my hands, warm and alive, as if something beneath the metal had finally noticed me. I stepped back, heart stuttering. The mist thickened. I could hear the faint scrape of something dragging, far behind, moving with the hum, always just beyond my sight. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but my voice stuck, brittle and thin. I slid into the driver's seat. The engine hummed steadily now, almost satisfied, almost gentle. I didn't turn the key. I didn't need to. It would start when it wanted. The fog swirled around the tires. The vibration lingered. Soft, constant, patient. I rested my head against the steering wheel and waited, listening to the hum, feeling it settle into the night, into me, as if it had always been here, and would remain long after I drove away. The station was empty. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, spilling pale light across cracked asphalt. The night air felt heavy. No wind, nothing moved, except the pumps. They swayed gently, back and forth, as if someone were pushing them. I thought I imagined it. But then, I saw it, figures, blurred and pale, shifting inside the glass panels. They didn't obey gravity. They didn't move like people. They drifted against the flow of reality. I stepped closer. The faint hum of the station filled my ears. Pressing against my skull, the figures froze when I looked directly at them. Then, they vanished. Not with a flicker. Not with light, just nothing. A cold mist rose from the hoses. It crept along the concrete, curling around my boots. The hoses were empty. I checked them. No fuel. No liquid. Just frost clinging where there shouldn't be frost. I stepped back. My breath came in shallow wisps. The air smelled metallic. Not gasoline. Not rust. Something older. A pulse ran beneath the lights. Slow. Measured. I thought about leaving, but curiosity pressed against me. Soft and insistent. I walked along the row of pumps. Every glass panel held a shadow. A flicker of motion. Shapes stretched and recoiled, as if trapped between frames of a memory. I reached the third pump. A figure leaned close to the glass. Its face was pale, almost luminous. But its eyes, they were hollow. I froze. My heartbeat thudded in the quiet. The figure bent forward and then vanished again. A chill swept across the station. The mist thickened. Clinging to my skin, I could see my breath in it. Soft footsteps echoed behind me. But when I turned, there was nothing. The pumps continued their slow, hypnotic sway. I tried to convince myself it was wind. There was no wind, only the faint hum, steady, like an old machine breathing. I moved toward the main building. The glass doors rattled with a rhythm that wasn't mine. Inside, the cashier's counter was empty. No registers, no chairs, just dust motes swirling in the faint light. I heard a whisper, not from the pumps, not from the building, from the space between. It spoke in fragments I could almost understand. My name, a question, a warning. I backed away. The air thickened further. Mist snaked around the pumps like fingers. One hose rose from its cradle, curling toward me. I froze. It hovered, slowly, deliberately. Then it dropped. The cold lingered in the hollow left. Behind? I looked up at the glass panels. Again, shapes, faces, watching, waiting. I couldn't see details. Only movement. The movement against the flow. Like a river of shadows, I whispered to myself, hoping sound could anchor me. Nothing answered. I tried to leave, but the asphalt seemed to stretch beneath my feet, slowly, insistently. The station had grown larger than I remembered, longer rows of pumps, more shadows, figures pressed to the glass, closer now, their forms stretching and bending. One reached through, almost touching me. I could feel a cold draft where it hovered, a breath not my own. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, it was gone. The pumps hung still. The mist curled into nothing. The station returned to silence, but the air smelled metallic and my skin tingled with frost. I walked to my car. The engine started without sound. The road ahead seemed empty. Yet in the corner of my vision, I saw movement, a shadow at the edge of the lot, watching. I drove. The station shrank behind me. But the feeling followed, a pull toward the pale. Lights and empty hoses. I told myself. It was just a dream. But the cold mist clung to my boots in memory. The hum of the pumps, still in my ears. I will never look at a gas station the same way again. Even now, in the silence of my room, I can feel the sway, the shadow waiting behind glass, and sometimes, when the night is still, I swear I hear soft footsteps, approaching. The highway stretched behind me, endless asphalt fading into fog. The night air was thick, heavy, carrying a faint hum I couldn't place. I saw the sign first, though I shouldn't have. Exit 66. The numbers were barely there. Rust ate the metal away. Letters curled and flaked, whispering something I couldn't read. I slowed. The road curved sharply, and the smell of wet earth crept in through the cracked window. Shadows gathered at the tree line, pale and restless. I pressed forward, tires crunching over gravel that appeared from nowhere. The asphalt gave way to dirt, then nothing. A clearing opened. Moonlight fractured across tall grass. The shapes appeared almost at once. They didn't move like animals. They flickered, shifting between trees too quick to see clearly. I recognized them. Somehow I understood them. Whispers came, soft, deliberate in my own language. Words I shouldn't have known, muttered by voices I had never met. The air was colder here. Breath hung like smoke in front of me. My hands shook on the wheel, though the engine hummed smoothly. I tried to call out. The sound of my own voice felt wrong. Bounced back at me, distorted, almost pleading. One figure stepped forward. It was tall, but the darkness swallowed its face. I wanted to look away, but my eyes held. I could see the outlines of others, circling the clearing. They weren't walking. They were gliding, drifting over roots and rocks without a sound. Every step I thought I'd take forward, the ground seemed to pull back. A rustle behind me. A single pale light flickered between trunks, and then silence. I shifted in my seat, trying to catch the movement again. Nothing. The shapes had vanished. I pressed the gas, leaving the clearing behind. The trees thinned, the road returned to gravel, then asphalt. The hum in the air lingered, low and insistent. I glanced back at the highway signs. None marked exit 66. I slowed, checking maps. No exit was there at all. I drove in circles, tires kicking up mist. Every road looked the same. Every tree was the same. I reached the edge of the forest again, thinking maybe I'd missed it. But the exit was gone. No rusted sign, no clearing, only the shapes in the shadows moving again. Flickers between trunks, whispers threading through the fog. I tried to turn, tried to escape, but the road twisted, unfamiliar. The radio played, though I hadn't touched it. Static, low like distant breaths. Words formed for an instant, then dissolved. Come back. Stay. Never leave. My heart slowed against my will, unnaturally. I wanted to stop, to close my eyes, to make it all vanish. The forest seemed to lean in closer, trees bending just slightly, watching. I thought I recognized the clearing in the distance, faint light between trunks. I drove faster. It receded. I blinked. The road was empty. No clearing. No figures. The fog wrapped around my car thick as cloth. I could hear leaves brushing the hood, soft footsteps against the tires. And yet, when I opened the door, nothing. Every sign on the highway was new, clean, unmarked. I passed towns I'd never seen, lights warm, welcoming, but distant. The hum persisted. Inside the car now, inside my head. I tried to turn around. The wheel refused slightly, as though the car didn't want to obey. The trees flared at the edges of my vision. Shapes moved there, whispering again. I couldn't tell if I had been driving for hours or minutes. Time thinned, stretched, snapped back. The signs were different now, but the road was the same. Sometimes I thought I saw a figure by the roadside. Pale, bent, still. A face obscured, but familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. I didn't stop. I couldn't. Yet every turn brought me back to the same place. Fog, rust, and silence. I wonder now if exit 66 ever existed at all. Or if it was waiting to find someone who would follow the whispers. The shapes. They never let me leave entirely. The highway stretches still, endless. I drive, and I hope that somewhere ahead the exit will finally break through. But I feel it in the back of my mind, soft and patient. It's waiting. Always waiting. The highway stretched into nothing. Fog rolled over the asphalt, pale and slow, swallowing the lines. It was after midnight, and the rest stop behind me was empty. I saw him first from the corner of my eye. A truck parked crooked, its lights dim. A man standing beside it, waving. Slow, deliberate, I slowed. Pulled over. Something in his motion made the hairs along my neck rise. He didn't speak. Not a word. Just eyes too wide, too bright, unblinking. I opened my door. The cold air rushed in, thick with exhaust and silence. I took a step forward. His stare followed. It was almost waiting. I blinked. The highway behind me faded in mist. A soft hum began beneath my feet, low, vibrating through the soles of my boots. I tried to greet him. "Evening," I said. Nothing. He tilted his head slowly. Curious, I think, or maybe not curious at all. I glanced at his hands. Empty. resting at his sides. Still, the fog grew thicker. Streetlights bent through it, long and pale. I noticed the truck. Its engine hummed steadily, almost like a heartbeat. I swallowed. Stepped closer. The smell of oil and wet tar wrapped around me. I glanced back at him. The eyes, still staring. Then I blinked, and he was gone. No movement, no sound. Just the truck, vibrating softly beneath my boots. The hum grew louder. I thought I felt it through my chest, a rhythm I could almost follow if I dared. I moved around the cab. No footprints, no tire marks, only the fog curling in tight circles around the tires. Something shifted inside the truck. A shadow flickered past the windows. But when I looked directly, nothing. The air pressed against my skin. Thick, heavy. The fog smelled faintly of iron. I leaned closer to the door. The engine's hum, steady, insistent, almost patient. I reached for the handle. It was warm. Too warm. Like it had been waiting. A soft vibration ran through my fingertips. Not mechanical. Something else. I stepped back. The hum softened. Almost a sigh, I circled the truck. The cab windows reflected the fog in broken streaks. I thought I saw a face. No, just my own. The tires seemed to pulse beneath me. Each pulse like a heartbeat. Slow. Measured. I took a step back. The road behind me was still empty. Silent save for the soft vibration. I thought I heard breathing, not mine. A shallow, rasping inhale that matched the engine's pulse. The fog shifted again. Long tendrils curled around the bumper. And then, nothing. The truck idled quietly. No one inside. No sign of the man. But I felt him somewhere just out of reach. I wanted to leave. I tried. My boots sank slightly in the damp asphalt. The vibration followed each step like it didn't want me to go. I turned my head. The highway stretched endlessly, empty. But I could feel eyes on me, soft footsteps. Or was it the truck shifting slightly? The hum, steady, slow, insistent. I stepped back to the cab. No handle, no door latch. Just the engine humming. A rhythm I couldn't escape. I heard the faintest scrape behind me, a shadow brushing the fog. But when I turned, only darkness. I leaned against the metal, cold. But the hum, warm against my chest, like it was alive. I closed my eyes, breathed in the exhaust, the fog, the quiet, the rhythm of the truck filling the space where the man should have been. I opened my eyes. The highway had shifted slightly, the fog more dense, more deliberate. I wanted to look away, but the engine's heartbeat pulled my gaze, and then, finally, silence. Not complete, not yet. Just enough to make the absence louder. I stepped back. The truck still vibrated. I could feel it through the soles of my boots. I turned my head one last time. No man, no shadow. Just the faintest glow of the cab lights, humming like a quiet, endless breath. I walked back to my car. The hum faded slowly behind me. But in my chest it lingered, and when I glanced in the rearview mirror, nothing, yet somehow, I knew it hadn't left. The highway was empty. Only the faint hum of tires against asphalt. It was late, or early. I never knew anymore. Above me, the mist began to gather. Thin at first, pale, almost fragile, then heavier. Hanging, folding, pressing down, I slowed. My headlights cut through the fog. It shimmered, suspended, as if the world above had softened. I thought it might drift away, but it didn't. Shadows emerged inside it, soft, then sharper, then too human to ignore. I blinked, tried to convince myself they were tricks of light. One shape hovered above a white line. It didn't move like a bird. Not like anything I knew, just watched. I swallowed hard. The road stretched behind me, empty. The fog seemed to breathe with me. Something landed softly on the asphalt. No sound, only a sudden weight of presence. I could feel it in the car's metal skin, pressing through the seat beneath me. My lights caught it for a fraction. Tall, thin, slightly shimmering, almost transparent. Then gone. I exhaled, shallow, careful not to make a sound. Another shadow flickered in the periphery. I dared not turn my head. The mist thickened. It rolled, curling like smoke from a distant fire. I could hear nothing, but the quiet was heavy. A movement above me, low, Something drifted slowly, impossibly, against the wind. I thought I saw eyes. Pale, reflective, unblinking. The world narrowed to the windshield, lights slicing through the fog, shadows dancing just outside reach. I pressed my hands to the wheel, hard, trembling. The shapes never came closer, but never left either. Then a pause. The mist shifted, and in the break I saw a form crouched, still, perfectly still. I blinked. It wasn't there. The road stretched forward, endless. Fog clinging to the asphalt. Breath clouding the inside of the windshield. My mind raced. Nothing made sense. Time had softened. Sound had left, another shadow landed. Soft, careful, deliberate. Just outside my headlights, I held my breath. The figure didn't move. Didn't blink. For a moment, I thought it was waiting. Or perhaps, watching me wait, the mist above swirled again. And I drove on, lights cutting through a world that no longer felt solid. Something brushed past the side mirror. Or maybe it was a trick. A memory of movement, I imagined. The hum of the engine felt loud. Too loud. Or the fog had grown too thick. I glanced upward, through the gray ceiling of mist. Shapes hovered. Soft, ambiguous, impossible to name. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stop. But I kept driving. A pale light shimmered across the asphalt. It left marks that weren't there a moment before, then faded as quickly as it appeared. The mist pressed in, curling around the tires, around the car, around my chest, a soft shuffle beside me. I turned, nothing. Just the fog, folding and unfolding like slow water. I dared not slow, dared not stop. The shapes above me shifted, watching. Then they were gone, or perhaps I had simply passed beneath them. The silence that followed was heavier than before. I kept moving. The highway stretched on. The mist above, still, endless, waiting, for hours maybe. I don't remember the exit. I only remember the wait. Sometimes when I drive alone now, I think of that mist. And I wonder what still waits above, folding over the world. And sometimes, I swear I feel it watching, even when the road is clear. The highway stretched ahead, empty beneath a sky that had turned a bruised gray. Rain-slicked asphalt reflected the occasional flicker of a distant neon sign. I slowed, the tires hissing against the wet surface. A rest stop appeared alone, like a small island in the endless dark. Its sign blinked, slowly, irregularly, as though it had its own rhythm. I squinted through the rain. There was someone there. Just beneath the light, the figure was still. I couldn't see features, only the outline, pale, waiting. I blinked. The sign flashed. The figure shifted a step closer. I swallowed. I pressed my hand against the wheel, feeling its cold pulse. Then the sign went dark for a beat. When it blinked again, the figure was gone. The concrete under the sign was empty. Yet the air hummed, thick with something unseen. A smell rose from the asphalt. Wet leaves, gasoline, and something faintly metallic. I felt my chest tighten. The sign flickered once more. Another figure, or the same one, now closer to the edge of the parking lot. I couldn't tell, and I didn't want to. Footsteps, or something like them, whispered across the gravel behind me. I told myself it was my imagination, but the silence that followed felt heavy, anticipatory. I opened the door, rain spattering inside. My shoes made a soft crunch against the concrete. The figure was nowhere. The sign blinked again. And then again, each flash revealing a shadow where there had been none moments before. I moved toward the restroom, breathing shallow. Each step seemed slower than the last. The shadows under the lights stretched, twisting. I paused, hand on the door. A chill wrapped around my shoulders. A pause that lasted longer than it should. Something brushed the edge of my vision. A movement in the corner, too quick to see clearly. I turned, and there was nothing. The sign flickered faster now. The rhythm uneven, almost impatient. I felt it watching, not the figure, but the space I occupied. I took another step. The lights buzzed, irregular, soft. And the figure, it wasn't there. Or maybe it was behind the veil of mist curling along the asphalt. I couldn't tell. The anticipation coiled in my stomach. I leaned against the restroom wall. The cold concrete pressed into my cheek. Silence stretched, except for the occasional flicker above. Then the figure appeared, or thought it did. Closer than before, where the light touched the edge of the lot. I froze. Blink. Gone. The light faltered again. Empty. Yet I knew the space remembered. Every flash, every pause, every absence. The air lingered, heavy with waiting. I stepped back to the car. The door closed with a soft thud. The sign blinked once, twice, and then nothing. Rain fell harder. I drove slowly, eyes darting to the dark edges of the lot. The figure never reappeared, and still, behind my eyes, it lingered. Not moving, yet closer than any place I could reach. Waiting in the space between flickers. The dashboard clock flickered 2:13. A pale light filtered through the mist curling across the highway. I reached into my pocket and felt the ticket. Soft, thin, blank. I glanced at the toll ahead. The booth loomed, silent. I handed over my ticket, and the attendant's eyes didn't meet mine. The slip came back, blank. The road stretched forward, straight and unnerving. No signs, no markings, just asphalt fading into fog. I flicked the ticket again. Still nothing. Cars passed, but slowly, almost dreamlike. Headlights swallowed in the haze. Each toll I approached returned the same blank slip. I thought maybe it was a mistake. The hum of the engine felt louder than it should. Every turn looked familiar, every exit strangely identical. I checked my mirrors. The lines of the highway bent in impossible angles. A rest stop appeared, though I hadn't remembered seeing it before. A gas pump rattled softly in the wind. I stepped out. The ticket crumpled in my hand. Empty. The fog pressed against the trees. Branches scraped the roof like fingernails. I tried to retrace my path. The road behind me looked wrong. The signs had no names, just blank boards reflecting the pale light. Every mile felt longer than the last. Time stretched, slow and sticky. I tried to turn around. The car wouldn't obey. I pushed, turned the wheel, heart thudding in a quiet rhythm. The highway curled back on itself. A sound, subtle at first, rose with the wind. Soft footsteps on gravel. I looked around, nothing. Only the ticket in my hand, still blank. The tolls kept coming, though I wasn't sure I was moving. Each one identical. The attendants' faces, pale, expressionless like reflections. And the tickets, always blank. I parked on the shoulder, fog thick around the tires. The ticket rested on my lap. I could see it clearly now. A void where numbers should be. The road bent sharply into the mist. A familiar curve, but one I didn't remember driving. I felt the hum of the car sync with my own pulse. The tickets whispered. Nothing. The headlights caught movement. I froze. Shadows stretched across the lanes, long and thin. They faded when I blinked. I tried to step forward out of the car. The ground shifted under the tires. Each step brought me back. The highway folding endlessly into itself. I checked the ticket once more. Blank. The same as before. And I realized it wasn't the ticket. It was the road, the tolls, the loops that had no end. I leaned back in the seat. Breath shallow. The fog thickened around the headlights. Soft, whispering, patient, and somewhere in the distance, I could swear a figure waved. Or maybe it was just my reflection. The ticket slipped from my hand, faded into nothing. And the road kept going. The highway stretched on, a ribbon of asphalt swallowed by fog. The yellow lines vanished beneath a pale mist. I thought I was alone. But the air, it felt aware. Shivers drifted up my spine without reason. Headlights sliced through gray, short bursts. Shadows flickered along the edges of vision. I caught movement, always at the corner, then nothing. The radio hummed softly. A low static whisper that sounded like my own name. I tried to turn it down. It only grew quieter. Inside my head, the wheel felt lighter than it should, as if my hands were guiding themselves. I slowed, paused, but the car moved anyway. Shapes darted between the trees, tall, thin, indistinct. They didn't approach. They didn't flee, just watched. A sense of knowing settled over me. Not fear exactly. More inevitability. I was not driving. I was being guided. The fog thickened, swallowing everything. The sky became a dull sheet, low and oppressive. My breath hung inside the cabin. Warm, visible, suspended. The road ahead wavered like heat on asphalt in summer, then flickered. A light, another light. Faint, unsteady. I pressed the brakes. Nothing happened. The world slowed to a soft hum. Even the engine seemed reluctant. There was a rhythm now, soft, intermittent, like a pulse. It carried me forward, or I followed it. I couldn't tell which. A tree leaned over the shoulder, its branches groping like fingers. I blinked. It vanished. The road beneath me shivered. I looked down at the asphalt. It rippled, then thinned. Edges softened, and then nothing. Silence. Pure, liquid silence. The fog pressed against the car, cold and weightless. I floated, suspended, like the world had been peeled away. I could hear whispers, not voices, not words, just the suggestion of someone waiting beneath the fog. I tried to turn, to reverse, but the wheel was light, impossibly light. The road no longer gripped the tires. The lights ahead flickered again. Each blink revealed shapes closer, then gone before I could name them. I realized they were not behind me, not to the sides. They were everywhere, inside the fog itself. A breath. I felt it on my neck. I spun. The seat was empty. The air still. The horizon dissolved. Where the road should have been, there was only a soft, endless gray. A kind of quiet I had never known. I let my hands fall from the wheel. The car slowed of its own accord. The whispers receded, leaving only a hum, a presence, silent and patient. The dashboard glowed faintly. Numbers flickered. Time was meaningless, distance irrelevant. I realized the journey was never mine to take. Shadows drifted closer, then dissolved into nothing. They never touched, never threatened, just observed. I leaned back in my seat. The fog settled around me like a blanket. It was soft, comforting almost. I could breathe again. The lights ahead stuttered once more, and then the road disappeared completely. Beneath me there was only nothing. Yet I did not fall. I simply floated. There was no panic. No frantic search for solid ground. Only acceptance. A quiet recognition that I had reached the end. Not of a road, but of something larger. The mist enveloped everything. And in it, shapes lingered. Watching, waiting, but never approaching. Never leaving. I exhaled. A soft, long release, and listened to the silence. It was not empty. It was a presence, patient and infinite. I did not move. I did not try. I let the hum of the void cradle me. The last traces of the highway fading, dissolving, until even memory softened. And there, in that gray infinity, I understood. The end was not terrifying. It was quiet. I was quiet. And the fog held me, like a hand I had always known, but never touched. The lights flickered once. Then, nothing. The highway stretched beneath a low silver fog. The night was quiet, but the air vibrated as if holding its breath. The asphalt smelled faintly of rain and asphalt tar, warm beneath my hands on the wheel. Shapes flicked through the corners of my vision. Dark, shifting, never still. Whispers brushed the edges of my mind. I couldn't make out words, only tone. Soft, coaxing, insistent. The fog thickened around the headlights. It rolled in waves, curling over the hood, settling on the mirrors. The hum beneath the car seat pulsed. A heartbeat that didn't belong to me. I realized then I was not driving. I was being guided. The wheel moved with me. The tires followed a path I didn't choose. Each mile stretched impossibly long, curving in ways the maps never showed. The air pressed close, cold and damp. The shapes in the fog whispered again. Their voices layered, high, low, distant, near. Fingers of mist brushed my face, carrying the smell of wet earth and something older, rusted. The world felt smaller, folding in, as though the fog itself had weight. I tried to focus on the road ahead. Lights flickered faintly in the distance. Pale, yellowing, unstable. They pulsed, almost breathing, drawing me forward. The silence fell then, heavy, complete, without edges. Even the hum beneath me softened, fading into the thick fog. The whispering paused, and I felt it then, alone, yet not. The shapes lingered at the edge of vision, watching, waiting, shadows pooling in the folds of the mist. Like liquid smoke, the lights ahead flickered again, and I stopped. The asphalt beneath me dissolved. One moment solid, the next, nothing. The tires hovered above empty space. No road, no shoulder. Only fog and the pulse of air. The mist curled around the car. It whispered now, not with words, but with the weight of presence. Soft, pressing, patient. A breath I could feel against my skin. I looked forward into the pale light. It was not bright, yet it filled the fog with shapes. Shapes that seemed familiar, though I couldn't place them. They moved closer, yet I did not feel fear, only understanding. The car seat hummed one last time, a low vibration through bone and blood. Then stillness. The fog wrapped fully around me. No road, no horizon, only the silence and the shapes that had guided me. I realized slowly that the highway had never been mine. It had only been a path to this place, and I had arrived. The lights flickered once more. A final pulse, like a heartbeat leaving the body. And then nothing. The road beneath me disappeared completely. The asphalt, the lines, the shoulder, all gone. Only the mist remained. I exhaled, though it made no sound. I was not moving. I was not alone. And yet I was utterly, impossibly still. The shapes shifted in the fog. Watching, waiting, patient. The hum had vanished. The whispers dissolved. The final mile ended, and I understood. Some journeys do not lead anywhere you can recognize. Only here, only the stillness, only the fog,